They are totally incapable of understanding Rishiji's teachings, she said, spitting out her words. All they want to do is hold on to their ridiculous superstitions. Alan responded, enjoying Mahadevi's discomfort. Mahadevi took a few deep breaths that came out like exasperated sighs, and then went back to the script that she had worked out with Rishi Suraj. And what about you, Alan? Do you think your uncle will become president? Alan took another bite of his paranta as he considered his uncle's chances. Senator Paul Hennessy had charisma, money, and 2 decades of IOUs from politicians all around the country. Maybe, Alan opined. Whatever the Almighty wishes, Mahadevi responded, touching her mouth with a cloth napkin. Oh, Alan, I almost forgot. Rishiji would like to see you at 5 this afternoon. I'll be there. Well, then I will take my leave, Mahadevi said, getting up to go. That night, Alan entered Rishi's inner sanctum, just as he was finishing his dinner. Come in, son, he said. Rani handed her father a wet cloth, and he wiped his hands with it. Then he placed the towel on the tray, and Rani reached down to take it away. Stay, he said, putting his hand over hers. Sit down, both of you. Alan sat down on the carpet before him as Rani reluctantly joined him. She wasn't surprised by her father's request. The ashram was like a small village, and gossip about this newcomer had soon reached Rani's ears. She had already heard much about the famous Hennessy family, with all its money and influence. She had also heard her father and Mahadevi scheming late into the night on how best to exploit this new devotee. She understood all that, but what confused her the most was Alan himself. Her father was fond of saying that the spiritual path was made up of seekers of God, refugees, and psychomaniacs. But what was Alan? He seemed to be like a radio channel with too much static around it to really know who he actually was. She had watched him striding around the ashram grounds like someone born to power, yet there was something wrong about it all. His face was smiling, but his eyes were haunted. It was the tension between the two that confused her, but attracted her as well. Why are people unhappy, Alan? Her father asked him. That's what I'm here to find out, Alan answered after a slight pause. Don't, how do you say it, cop out on me. Why? Alan was at a loss on how to answer Rishi Suraj, so he just shrugged his shoulders. Listen closely to me. You are not who you think you are. Conscious mind is only 20% of you. The rest is the subconscious. That is where all the creative energy and demons lie. If you do not clean it every day, just like the body, then you'll be miserable and insecure. That is why we have meditation. And I have a special one for you two to do. I worked hard before my master gave it to me. Now I want you to do it. It will clean out all the hidden spaces. Face one another, he instructed. Rani, put your right palm up, and Alan, you cover it with your left. Now reverse that on the other hand. This is just for the energy flow. You will chant the mantra Ek Ankar Sat Nam Sri Wa Hey Guru, which means that there is one spirit that moves everything, and that spirit is your true identity. Feeling it will elevate you. But what I am saying is only a concept. You must vibrate it to know it. Close down the eyes and pull the navel in hard when you chant Ek, Sat, and Wahe. Rani, you've done it many times, so you lead. They set themselves, closed their eyes, and took a deep breath. Ik Ankar Sat Nam Sri Wa Guru, they chanted. After a few repetitions, Rishi Suraj interrupted them. Now practice it an hour each day. That is my command, he said, gesturing for them both to leave. Outside, Alan looked at Ronnie and asked her where they should do this meditation. Ronnie's mind was filled with too many thoughts to answer immediately. Her father had never asked her to meditate with one of his students before. What was he up to? Come with me, she finally said, as she led Alan to a brook away from the ashram. This is where my mother likes to meditate, she told him, as she sat down on a patch of grass surrounded by some large rocks. They sat before each other and began their meditation. Within a few minutes, Ronnie started to feel sick. She had the strongest urge to run away, but she knew she couldn't just get up and leave him. But as the minutes dragged on, she felt worse and worse, her muscles aching as though she had the flu. She looked up at her third eye, trying to get some guidance, and what she saw there made her feel even more confused. Above Alan, she saw a huge cobra that was striking him again and again as his body recoiled in pain. Ronnie shook her head and opened her eyes, looking at Alan, but everything seemed normal. The only thing that she could detect was a slight convulsive movement of his right hand, as though he was being shocked. Ronnie then closed her eyes and called on her protective deity, Mother Kali, for help. The goddess appeared, and immediately she dug her sharp nails into the neck of the cobra. The serpent hissed more out of surprise than pain, and vanished. Ronnie blinked her eyes open, glad to be back in the physical world. Her whole body still shook with having come into contact with something altogether evil. She stared at this strange American before her. What in the world could he have done to have brought on such ugliness? She wondered to herself.